Hey everybody, AMZ here. On this episode of Undressing Bourbon, Bringing It Home, we're down in Lexington at James E. Pepper Distillery to meet head distiller Cody Giles to learn a little bit about him and the distillery. Let's come on in. Well, Cody, thank you very much for meeting us here today to give us a chance to learn a little bit about you and a little bit about James Pepper Distillery. So I guess to start off, could you tell me how did you end up here as a distiller?
Yeah, the short and sweet of it would be a little bit hard work, a little bit of luck, probably a bunch of great mentors, and not just a passion for making bourbon and getting my hands dirty, I would say. So I got a chemical engineering degree from University of Kentucky, and also got a distilling, winemaking, and brewing certificate from what's now the James B. Beam Institute at UK. Through that, my professors graciously referred me to Amir when the distillery was starting up, and I've been here ever since in 2017. So, yep. So,
did you have any other jobs before you came here to the distillery?
Well, I did some internships that were more engineering oriented with the Navy, and then I also. What brought me to the beverage industry was helping out at UK's Vineyard and Winery with Jeff Wheeler out there. Had a really good time just getting my hands dirty making wine and growing grapes, and thought I'd want to be doing something making a consumable product, I think.
Well, I'm glad you decided you make a delicious product here. So could you tell us a little bit more about the distillery?
Yeah, so we're in the James Pepper Distillery in downtown Lexington. We're in what was once the original distillery, built in 1880. At the time, it was considered probably the largest and most advanced distillery in the United States at the time, headed by the namesake Colonel James Pepper. He was really a larger-than-life industry tycoon type. He was into horses and had distilling in his blood. He claims back to the Revolutionary War. That's where the 1776 comes from in some of the branding. It made whiskey up until the 1960s when it closed, and sort of the brand was lost to obscurity a little bit until the owner, Amir Pay, he acquired the rights to the brand in 2007, and he was selling some sourced whiskey under the 1776 line, and through that capital was able to rebuild and restore the distillery here today, and we've been distilling here since 2017, making mostly bourbon and rye whiskey.
So can you recall the first time that you had bourbon? Does it bring back any special memories?
I'd imagine it went like a lot of people's first experience with bourbon, probably a funny face, followed immediately by pouring some Coke over it. So I guess I would say I've earned my palate through the years, and I really started, I would say, taking the tasting aspect more seriously when I started working here. So I guess I would think of the journey to get to my appreciation of bourbon now, but yeah. I definitely say it's an acquired taste, to say the least, right? You really got to work at it. You got to really want to like bourbon, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's worth it when you get there.
Yeah. Same here. I'm a little bit older, and so some of those bottles that I was drinking back in the day and chasing them with Coke or something else that I truly didn't appreciate, looking at what the prices of those dusty bottles now, those are kind of valuable. So I wish I would have enjoyed them and appreciated them or had the foresight to hide them somewhere. And
Right. I
drink
mean,
them
even
today.
10 years ago when I was young, it was nothing to have to go pick up a bottle of some really nice bourbon,
Yep.
and it was always stocked.
Yeah,
You could
yeah.
always find it.
Yeah.
It's not so much the case anymore.
Right.
But, you know.
Do you have a favorite memory of sharing bourbon with friends or family?
Well, you know, to be honest, growing up, by the time I was born, I think a lot of my family had given up drinking. And if drinking was occurring, it was probably some beer, some lagers. I will say now that my dad and my uncles have started retiring. They've picked up the collecting hobby, I'd say. So now it's like I'm making memories now with them being able to share my whiskey too. So it's been nice in that aspect.
You know, that would be another question. What about like the first time that you shared whiskey that you made with family or friends? Do you remember that? Like, were you proud? Were you afraid of what they were going to think about it?
Yeah, so I mean, leading up to releasing our own, I think I was hyper focused, and when I was tasting it, super hypercritical probably, and worried what people would think. And I thought it tasted good, but I was like, does it actually taste good?
Yeah.
Or do I really want to believe it tastes good? But yeah, it was probably my dad and my girlfriend, honestly, that tried my whiskey that I shared with in a more intimate setting, and thankfully they both liked it, or at least pretended to like it. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, it's always special to be able to share something, especially when you have a hand from the grain to bottling it in every aspect.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I would imagine. Is there a specific bourbon, brand of bourbon, anything like that triggers any memories or takes you back to a certain place or time?
Yeah, I guess my drinking career isn't too long yet. I'm 29. I will be 30 this year. So that's a big step, I think. But yeah, and honestly, being here seven years now, a lot of my drinking's been around the bourbon drinking's been around our brand, and really trying to key in on what our flavor profile is and what our product line's gonna look like down the road, and then building up to our blends, like in our decanter bottle here. So yeah, I mean, I've been really focused on pepper for many years now, and unfortunately it may have taken a little time away from me being able to explore the rest of what everyone has to offer, and there's a ton of really good bourbons out there now. I do the best I can to keep up, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's nearly impossible these days. But, you know, I think another positive aspect of that is you mentioned that, you know, some of those things that we were drinking back in the day are now nearly impossible to find. But I do love that there are so many other brands coming to market, so many craft distilleries making a unique and delicious product. So I think that's one good thing we have to look forward to right now.
definitely, and I think a lot of those craft distilleries are in the same boat as us, where we're into year 7 of production, going into year 8, and there's some really nice whiskeys with good age on them that we're able to release now. So
Yeah.
it's been nice. And then the bourbon industry is just unique in the camaraderie between distilleries, and it's just nice to be a part of. So it's good to see everybody succeeding in that regard.
You know, even being a person who is sort of adjacent to the industry, just helping with Bourbon on the Banks Festival and Frankfurt Bourbon Society, I've made a ton of friends in the industry, and it's really great to see that camaraderie, to see competitors willing to help each other out, when I feel like in our society these days you just don't see that very much. When you think of bourbon, is there a place or a location that comes to mind?
Well, I think like many Kentuckians, it's home, right? Like bourbon just feels like home, and you can be anywhere in the country, look behind the bar, and just be taken back, right back to Kentucky. And yeah, I think what do they say about Kentuckians? They're either thinking about home or on their way home if you run into one. So, and that again, just being able to be a part of the flagship industry in your state's nice, and being in a small craft distillery where you have a hand in every step of production, and being really integral in the product development and the end result. It's super nice and satisfying.
You know, I was born in Kentucky, just in the hospital. 2 days later, my parents took me back to Indiana. It took me 35 years to get back home,
Right,
so
yeah.
I'm happy to be here now. When you think about bourbon, is there a person who comes to mind?
You know, I think now that my dad's picked up the hobby and a lot of my uncles, it's really just the men in my family and maybe the ones that didn't make it to today that I could share it with. There's a couple that I really wish I could have made it to see this whiskey come out. So, but yeah, most of the men in my family just enjoying bourbon together now that we go fishing and pass around a flask around a campfire, and that's all just good times. Yeah.
You know, and I've probably mentioned on the show before, I remember my dad and my grandfather, their bourbon of choice was Early Times. And my grandfather passed away many years ago. But for my birthday this year, I managed to track down an 80s bottle of Early Times. And on my birthday, my dad and I mixed some of that 80s Early Times with Coke and drank it the way they did. So that was a nice memory.
That's the great thing about bourbons for any occasion. It's, a memorial or a celebration.
So I mentioned, mixing some with Coke there. In your opinion, is there a right way or a wrong way to drink bourbon?
You know, I'd say now, and the purist in me, I think neat is the way to go if you can step up to there and get used to, and I really enjoy whiskeys a 90 proof and above. I'm not too crazy about super high proofs, and I'm not saying that that's what you need to be aiming for is the super aged, super high proof bombs. There's really good whiskeys that doesn't take too much work to be sippable at the 100 proof area, and I just think that's the best way to really pick apart a bourbon if that's what you're aiming to do. But I still really enjoy a good old fashioned, a good whiskey sour with good whiskey in them as well. I think it's bottled and bond's a great way to go for cocktails.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes if you go too low of a proof and then you put it in a cocktail, it can really dilute the whiskey too much.
Right.
So, do you have any family traditions related to bourbon, that are special to you or bring back any memories?
You know, since there wasn't too much bourbon drinking going on, there's not too many long-standing traditions. There's been stories that maybe my grandparents and great-grandparents might have been moving some extra legal alcohol during the Prohibition days, and that was my family connection to the industry. But as far as drinking, not too much, but I think, I'm making them today, I would say, with my family.
Have you ever stumbled upon a hidden gem or some unexpected whiskey you tried that really surprised you?
Well, I'm gonna shamelessly plug one of our whiskeys. Our small batch single malt that we bottle at 100 proof. It's a blend of different single malt mash bills we've produced and aged in various cooperage, new and used barrels, peated and non-peated malt. It's a very subtle peat smoky flavor backed up, and it's really sweet malty base. And I think once people try it, they really like it, and we have a really good price on it and up front. So I think that's a hidden gem that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, I honestly was not familiar with
We'll
that.
have to try it. You'll
Yeah.
have to try it before you leave.
Yeah, I look forward to
And
that.
tell your friends about
I will.
it. It's really good.
Well, if I like it too much, maybe I won't tell my friends about it. And I'll save it
Yeah.
for myself. So, is there a quiet moment that you have every so often, or a special quiet place that you like to sit down and just take the time when you have it to enjoy a nice glass of whiskey?
Yeah, so now especially we have our own storage facility, processing facility in Midway, about 20 minutes from the distillery. So I've placed my blending lab out there so I can get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, go out to surrounded by farmland. It's nice and quiet, and that's when I really get down and dirty with all of the whiskeys and the blending for the decanter and the bottle and bond, and just keeping track of where our whiskeys are heading. And that, I really appreciate that. That's nice. And I'm always, when I'm doing that, I'm always thinking that's really the times where I'm like, I'm very lucky to be doing what I'm doing now.
Is there anything that you think sets you apart from other people in the bourbon industry?
I feel like I'm a pretty normal guy. I don't do too much different. I come into work and I happen to get to make whiskey. So feel really blessed and lucky to be doing that. I feel like I haven't been around long enough to really call myself a master or anything yet, but one day maybe I'll get to that, and I'm just super excited and to be able to be releasing these whiskeys now and really putting the Pepper name back out there and getting it back to prominence and getting my name out there a little bit, making it. So, yeah.
If you could name your very own bourbon, what would you name it and why?
I don't know. I'm so focused on this brand. I'm just thinking about Pepper products, honestly. I've never really thought about what I'd want to do myself. I'd always think I would probably dedicate it to my grandpa somehow, incorporate his memory into it. He was really a big role model for me growing up and teaching me what hard work meant and how to be prideful about your work. So yeah, I think it would have to be incorporate my grandfather, my late grandfather somehow.
Well, hopefully we'll see that one of these days.
Maybe. Maybe.
So Cody, if somebody wants to be able to find out a little bit more about the James Pepper Distillery, try some of the products, what's the experience like if they come visit the distillery?
Yeah, so we're really highly rated on TripAdvisor. I'd like to think we offer a really good tour that goes through the history of bourbon with James Pepper Inn in Lexington, Kentucky. We offer full flights of our whiskeys, and the tour includes a tasting at the end. And I like to think it's a really good tour. We're open 6 days a week for tours, Tuesday through Sunday. And you can also visit us at jamesepepper.com. We have a really good short documentary that goes into the history of Colonel Pepper and the distillery here. And yeah, we hope to see you soon.
So Cody, thank you very much for letting us visit you today and sharing a little bit about yourself and the James E. Pepper Distillery.
There's no problem. I appreciate y'all coming in.
And thank you for joining us on this latest episode of Undressing Bourbon, Bringing It Home. You can find out more about us and Bourbon on the Banks at bourbononthebanks.org. Cheers, everyone.